Supposedly the phrase, "a picture is worth 1,000 words," was first quoted by a guy named Frederick Bernard to describe the effects that visuals had on print media. Various sources also claim he stole the idea from Japan or China, so the origins of the phrase remain a little hazy. Nonetheless, the idea of using pictures to convey meaning is not a new or novel idea. Today we're going to look at some of the different tools you can use to write about the meaning you do create from visual images. I'm Mr. Wong, and pictures, am I right? So let's say you've been tasked with writing a response based on a visual, or you might have been given an essay question that asks you to develop a thesis based on a picture or a visual. Sometimes you'll be given the freedom to write whatever you want. Sometimes you'll be asked to answer a specific question. But we've got to start somewhere, right? So I'm going to start you guys off with some of the pictures that I've taken myself and some of the tools that you can use to analyze the photos you've been given. I call this one, "Gonna Need a Bigger Freezer." So since we talked about the importance of words, the first question you should ask is what words come to mind when you look at the visual? Off the top of my head, the ones that jump out to me are words like Pokemon, cannibal, supermarket, beef, Miltank if you know the name of the Pokemon, etc. The second question you can ask yourself is what emotions do you feel and why? Emotions are useful for grounding us in our empathetic response, or lack thereof. You might be shocked, you might be sad, you might be angry, weirded out, what have you. Next, let's move on to this picture. I call it "Mewtwo welcomes you to Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Children." So yes, this is the actual building they used to film the X-Men movies. It's in Victoria, BC. Another way to analyze images is by asking yourself, what personal or historical connections can you make? Have we seen something like this before? Does this relate to you in any way? Do you love Pokemon, or the X-Men, or both? Can you make a connection between Mewtwo's psychic powers and that of Charles Xavier's? Who would win in a fight? Who has won similar fights in the past? That sort of thing. Another thing you want to ask yourself is what are some important details or symbols in the visual? A symbol, for those of you who are not familiar with the terms, is anything that represents something else. If you've read enough books, you will come to learn that doves symbolize peace and tranquility, while scales represent justice, and so on. And while the word symbolism sometimes strikes fear into the hearts of young English students, or it elicits an eye roll, we're surrounded by symbols every day. People wear wedding bands as a symbol of their marriage. The flag is a symbol that represents our country. Even money itself is little more than a symbol of value. And sometimes those symbols appear in pictures and text, which, if they do, is usually something worth mentioning in an analysis. Next is composition, or how an image is composed. I call this one, "Totodile is excited for bath time." When we look at composition, we think about how the photographer has arranged the subjects in the image, or how they've used the foreground, middle ground, and background. Where is the focus? What are you supposed to see first? Composition elements are quite common in photography, and the chances are an image you've been asked to analyze will be one whose composition has been arranged that way with intent. Once you've analyzed an image or a series of images and come up with the words and emotions and you thought about connections and symbols and composition, you can begin to think about theme, which is to say, what is it all about? What can this photo or these photos tell me about the world? In this case, a theme that arises from these photos might be Pokemon in real life, or it might be something more practical like augmented reality can be used to enhance our appreciation of life, or what have you. And once you have your theme or your thesis, you can begin to make inferences using evidence from the visual. What can we conclude about our thesis based on evidence from the photos? This part is not unlike what you're called upon to do in a critical analytical essay. Pointing stuff out is the what, and the inference is the so what. And there you have it, a quick guide to visual analysis. Now, if you're in grade 9, your next assignment will involve you doing analysis on a number of images, and that'll eventually culminate in a larger assignment or activity. So please do let me know if something doesn't make sense or if you need clarification. Hopefully it all made sense. For now, that's it for this week. See you later.